So there we go. This just gives us an opportunity for me to say things once and not 5 or 6 times. Plus, for me, I can go back and see all your beautiful faces, which I really enjoy, uh, and some that are very dear to me. Miss CJ. So let's go ahead and take some nice deep breaths, the way I usually start my classes for anyone that's been with me before. And let's calm that parasympathetic or calm the sympathetic nervous system with the parasympathetic, that vagus nerve. Breathe in, hold that breath. Nice big exhales. And as we take some nice deep breaths and relax our neck backwards, forwards, side to side, I just want to know you're all invited here today, regardless of how your day's going. Joy's turning hers around. It's been hectic, but she said she's going to win it by the end. So just taking a few moments to come to this space. We have about 30 minutes of conversation. I'm excited to present this course that we've worked on and tie it into our trauma work. Just taking those nice deep breaths, relaxing into this space, and know that you're all invited no matter how you're showing up here. And of course, I'm grateful that you take a bit of time to spend with us. So, in this trauma-informed community. So, without further ado, I think that's what they say, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen with you guys. Oh, wow, it's Old Home Week here. There's all kinds of people popping in. Hey, Janet. So, trauma-informed coaching. I'm really pleased to be able to talk about this course. For some of you that have known me, we've been in the works of a couple of courses over the last year, and they have started 3 years before that, mentally in our brains. So it's taken a bit of time to actually get them to this space. But nonetheless, I'm very pleased that we actually made it this far, and we have the course, and it's already ran a pilot, and we are pretty excited about the work that it involves. So I want to just share some of it with you today and then give you an opportunity for questions and of course to pick up a code if any of you are interested in taking it so that your those who have dollars that aren't Canadian can make it work even more for them. I'm not sure what the exchange is now. I think it's 24 US dollars to 90 of ours or something ridiculous. I know it's not quite that, but for those of you who don't know us, we're Moving the Human Spirit, and we are a company that has committed all of our work to Social Venture Institute. And what Social Venture Institute means to us is that we are socially conscious in the work that we do, and we don't do it for nonprofit. We're doing it in order to make an income and a living. So that's what we refer to here as Social Venture Capital or Social Venture Institute. And it is making sure that we stay aligned with some of the ethical guidelines and practices that we do and how we maneuver those and how we show up in the world. And we are a global leader in trauma-informed coaching certification. For those of you that don't know, we were the first trauma-informed coaching certification that the ICF actually accredited people to come and take our courses. They thankfully have done this trauma-informed group coaching course as well. I'll talk a little bit about that. We've actually garnered 40 CCEs for this course, and for anyone that knows the ICF, that's the allowance that you have for any CCEs now with their new platforms, if it's not a level 1, level 2. Or level 3, I believe they have. We're also working actively with trauma survivors and their families. And that's one of the things that we take great pride in. So we work with places like Wounded Warriors. We've worked with the Anishinaabe in Manitoulin Island, which was a complete pleasure. They're a wonderful band to work with, Indigenous band to work with. We also worked with the Wet'suwet'en, which is more close to us. That was a wonderful period of time, difficult for them through COVID. But so we work with firemen, policemen, we work with emergency response, nurses, doctors. We also work heavily with the military, and that was what the born out of the military work that we did. That's how we actually came to do these accredited courses because we were finding that we needed more coaches than what we had, and they had to be trauma informed to train. So we're quite proud of that. So if I go on and gush about it a little, please forgive me. Because there was a time that ICF said, no way, no how will a coach ever work in trauma. So, and you know how we feel about rules? Some of them might need to be looked at and readjusted. And thankfully, they agreed with us. So, my name's Brad Hardie. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a co-founder at Moving the Human Spirit. I have a master's coaching certification or credential, I should say. I'm a certified trauma professional. I play with NLP. I think it's always interesting to do neurolinguistic programming by connecting the brain and the body. I don't know how people have been working for years just in their heads, but we see a lot of fallout from that. Also, trauma-informed coach certified. I have certifications in trauma-informed coaching, obviously from our company, and a hand in writing some programs such as the trauma-informed group coaching that we're going to talk about today, the trauma-informed relationship coaching, which is interesting as well. And also more recently, we just started a compassionate leadership, and that's working in trauma and adversity. And we are getting HR CCs for that and SHORM CCs for that. So thankfully, we've been approved by the US for SHORM. And we have also started, currently we have Nova Scotia, Manitoba, and Alberta with CPHR, I believe they're called. So that's just an added bonus. And of course, the objective there is to also start putting some of what we do into practice in human resources, leadership, and business. So I think it's a consideration that the people that are at the forefront of employing all of us should have some intelligence around trauma informed. Susan, I will let you introduce yourself. I think you're here today. This is my partner and other co-founder, Susan Hogarth. So I'll allow you to introduce yourself, Sue.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, as Brad said, I'm Susan Hogarth. I think probably I've talked to every single one of you if you have gone through our program. I am usually the one that does the intake conversations, and they fill my day. I love them. I think they're just a wonderful way to connect on a human level with people and support them on their journey as they navigate the ICF and trauma-informed certifications. You'll have to apologize. I seem to have a lot of calls coming in this morning, so I keep having to step away. But enjoy your time here. I am ICF certified like Brad and trauma informed. And for me, coaching cultures within organizations, school systems, everything is my passion. So take it back, Brad.
Thank you so much. And I will also just ask, Charles is actually going to, one of our associates, Charles, I'll allow him to introduce himself. He's working with us in facilitating some of these specialized programs. So anything outside of the level 1 or the trauma-informed intensive or advanced, we call it. Charles will be also a contact for you. And Charles, I'll allow you to introduce yourself. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Brad. So yes, my name is Charles Maroney. I am a certified trauma support specialist as well as a trauma-informed coach. I am part of the COPE program that Brad mentioned, working with the Wounded Warriors of Canada. So I actively work with trauma survivors in their progression forward towards post-traumatic growth. and getting them to where they want to be. So I'll be here to support you throughout this webinar. If you have any questions or anything that comes up in any way that I can support you, please either send me a message in the chat directly, or you can use the chat for everyone. Brad will be taking questions after the webinar. So if you have a question in mind and you don't want to forget it, you can put it in the chat and we'll read over it a little bit later. Towards the end, I will put my contact information along with my scheduler. So if anybody does have more questions or is interested in taking the trauma-informed group coaching certification, I'll be the liaison there to help you get registered. All right.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Charles. I'm seeing some people are putting where they're arriving from, so please feel free to put in the chat where you're arriving from. I see some of us from Scotland and Netherlands, of course. Anya, nice to have her from Netherlands, and anyone else that wants to share. San Francisco, great. Dubai, wonderful. So I'm actually located in a place called Slichelt, which can also be pronounced Chetlich, depending on who you're talking to. And it is the unceded territories of the Salish people in BC, in what we call, my particular area is called Sandy Hook. So I'm very happy to be here and living on this land because it is a real pleasure. So let's look at this course. Enough about me. What about this? So we're going to talk a little bit about trauma-informed group coaching. So there's a few things that I want to share this morning. So one of the things that I think about that makes trauma-informed coaching fairly critical in what we're doing in our environments is that trauma-informed coaching actually assists us in working with past trauma in individuals, but we do it as a group. And some of what I've been finding, and one of the reasons that we started moving towards this type of platform, is that we really looked at how can we leverage some of the work that we're doing as trauma-informed coaches, and how can we do it more in a group environment. One of the things for anyone that maybe has gone through the course with me, I talk about trauma not being able to heal by itself. And that's a huge conversation that we have a lot of the time. When I'm talking to clinical practitioners, they have the same mindset. Trauma does not heal by itself. We know that some of the issues that show up for us after the imprint of trauma are isolation, dissociation, and being out of society. And as a result of that, we can do a spiral into a deepening trauma behaviors that are maladaptive. So one of the interesting things that we look at in this is how we can empower individuals to be in a group setting, how we can, it says here, leverage the power of collective wisdom and solidarity. It's interesting in some of the work that we do with people who have experienced trauma, PTS, anxiety disorders, depression. One of the things that happens is that they feel quite alone. And when we are able to do group work, we actually can strengthen the knowledge that we find. We also don't feel so separate. We don't feel so alone in the process. And I'm not suggesting that every trauma that exists can be identified in a way that is different or the same as someone else's. But certainly there are things that I experienced, you may have experienced as you've gone through your imprints, that other people can share in a way that is relative to you. The other interesting thing that we find about group work, of course, is that there is a lot of listening that happens with the clients and a lot of sharing that goes on that is much more deep and personal that really assists in the healing process. Now, the key thing that we want to remember when we're doing trauma-informed coaching and why we have produced this course is because in the past, what I've heard when it comes to peer group work, and maybe someone that is not a coach, is that it can sometimes really anchor victimization and woundology. And what we want to do in group work is that we want to come to a place where we create that sense of community, belonging. And of course, we know that through skills as coaches and being able to really utilize some of what's going on in the group, it can really be that catalyst that's needed to get people to where they need to go. The other wonderful thing that we found about group work is that it holds someone accountable to be able to support you outside of the coach practitioner. And I have to say that can be really, really amazing for people. Because sometimes they won't talk to a coach practitioner after a session, but they will have other people within the group to help organize their thoughts and patterns and to further evolve the learnings from the group itself. And that's really valuable in the work that we do. So why trauma-informed group coaching? So these are really some of the core purposes of the course. We know some of these things quite well. We're empowering individuals to really be resilient and be self-empowered. That's one of the things that we do. We're, of course, encouraging a really collaborative goal setting to create ownership of healing. So remember, anything that happens to us is the narrative that we live by. Trauma is no different. And we are looking at that narrative and making choices about how we take ownership and change the stories that identify who we are. Our personality is wrapped up in what happened to us. Makes total sense. So how do we take that and look even further and take ownership about how we can change it? So really kind of looking at where we're at and how we can sacrifice that for where we want to go. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. Normalizing experiences within group settings. Again, trauma is really personal. So when we look at being able to maybe normalize some of the experiences, that can really help reduce that isolation and shame that we studied. Shame's a heavy place for people to be. And the role, of course, of trauma-informed coach is really guiding and facilitating group healing. We don't heal, we don't diagnose, we don't treat, but we are there to facilitate some of the questions that happen. So we create safe and supportive spaces. We want to look at equipping ourselves with the skills to support individuals who've experienced trauma. As trauma-informed coaches, a lot of you already know this, and we're working on the healing and growth within a group setting. The other interesting thing for group work in this particular mindset is that we can utilize our skill set for more than one individual at a time. We can utilize the group think and group share to further promote healing. And the other thing is that we can make this more affordable per hour to individuals so that we can then have 10 people paying maybe half of our session fee times 10. So it makes it a win-win situation for the skill set to work with people. And sometimes people will become encouraged by what's going on for other individuals in the group. Oftentimes we see people say, I can totally relate to that. It was different for me, but I have a relationship to what you're saying. And here's what happened when it happened to me, or here's how I dealt with it. So we really utilize that transformation and change. We gain deeper understanding, these key competencies, deeper understanding of trauma and its effects. And it's interesting when we're setting and bearing witness to other people in a room, how close and how cradled that can make individuals feel. It really is about isolation and feeling like we're the only ones. And in group work, we have that opportunity to say that's not so. Cultivate empathy, understanding, and practical support strategies. That's part of why we're doing this course. And we're doing it very much about the steps that we had in the TICC advanced. All those steps are in this, but we're going to be looking at them from a group setting point of view. Of course, we're going to enhance communication and leadership skills. We want you guys to be able to strengthen your group facilitation. Not everyone likes group. Lots of people love groups. And being able to work with them. How do we hold the space? What happens if something goes pear-shaped? How do we make sure there's movement within a group? How do we ensure people are getting what they came for? So really looking at how do we do that? How do we sit in the coach presence? How do we learn to navigate group dynamics in confidence with, of course, compassion, our love child of empathy and action? Because we want to make movement for people. It's not a bitching session. We're here to make progress with people. We want to help them and assist them to move forward. So make a meaningful impact, empower group members to navigate their experience with resilience. And again, we are really utilizing the group to be able to do that. Experience personal growth while making a difference in others' lives. That's why we all showed up to the table. We talked about the process of healing and how on the spiral of healing, when we know we're getting near the end, what actually ends up happening is that we feel we want to contribute to others. So really looking at this and promoting some of the personal growth and where we're at and being able to utilize it in a setting that's more than just one of. And I'm not saying that that's for everyone, but there are lots of people that love working in group. And your guys' contribution to trauma-informed coaching brought you to the table to do that with individuals. So this is an exciting new area to look at and go, oh, okay, this might be optional for me. Core learning areas, we're going to work on holding space and directing a group. If we don't have that technique, we're not going to be able to create advancement in the group. So setting boundaries and guiding conversations. I think a lot of the practice that we have is learning how to guide conversations within a group setting. And it's really coming back to this place and going, we sometimes can step into a group and suddenly move into, what's the word I'm looking for? We can move into consultancy quite quickly because we feel like we're there to manage the people themselves and to get them to a place. So one of that is true. One of them is we're there to manage and help, but they'll get to their own place. So it's still that memory that this is going to be their outcome, their input. Group formation and coaches' roles, really understanding the dynamics, structuring sessions. We go through how we would structure sessions and we look at that in the group coaching. We have options to think about how do I want to run the group? And you'll see the homework that comes with this is every bit about starting how your group's going to look, how do we work with the group, which one of the dynamics of group do I want to use in my practice. So there's also this not only coaching, but an underlying how we build the product we'll end with after the sessions. And we put that in because I find it really beneficial. You can have all the education you want, but if you don't know how to utilize the steps or know how to use it practically, then what's the use? So really looking at how do I want this to look for me? How do I want it to look for the people I'm going to work for? And how does this fit into the structure, not only of the steps we use in coaching, but also how we manage a business and look at it in a group facilitation point of view. So really looking at emotional maturity in facilitation. So that's, a psychoeducation piece that we want to look at, managing triggers, responding with compassion and leading with integrity. Screening and assessing participants, we want to understand how to do that because we're going to have responsibility of a group and being able to understand readiness, identifying needs, and creating a balanced group dynamic is really important for the work that we'll put forward. Understanding group types, we'll look at support groups, group-orientated groups, structures versus open forums. What do those mean? How do they impact how we do our work? Obstacle resolution. We always try to do that in trauma-informed coaching. Managing conflict, navigating emotional responses, fostering accountability. So those are some of the core learning areas that we're going to be going through. minding my time here for everyone. And we do it, of course, using our TIP methodology. So that creating an alliance, our desired change, interested inquiry, lens of exploration, the key developments and the commitment that we work with within trauma-informed coaching. And the other interesting thing, of course, is that all of these align with the ICF core competencies. Some of those steps filter at least 2, if not 3, of the core competencies. And that, of course, is a great way for us to do group work because we're still going to remain within the ethical guidelines of the International Coaching Federation. And we do that because we are part of and accredited by the International Coaching Federation. And we are credentialed as a program by them. So we always want to make sure that they show up in the mix because that's important. So we're enhancing professional coaching skills through ethical guidelines and best practices, strengthening active listening, direct communication, and powerful questioning, and of course, facilitating client growth through goal setting and accountability frameworks. And that's sometimes what people have difficulty with in group. But every person has a different idea about what they want to accomplish. So we're going to learn how to facilitate some of that growth, even though some of the objectives might be personal to each person, and really utilize the group thought and group think and how we move them to an end of a process. That, of course, is what? Sustainable, because what we're doing is always working towards the sustainability. We are working to get rid of our clients. We want them to be self-sustainable for themselves. We don't want codependent relationships. I mean, you can have them if you want, no problem. Please do. But our work as trauma-informed coaches are to make people resilient and capable on their own without us having to give them anything. So I've got us down at 10:30 as I promised. I would like to know if anyone has any questions around what we just talked about. And certainly also encourage for anyone that wants to capture, I'm throwing this up in case anyone has to leave, capture the code for $250 off this particular thing. And I have no idea what that makes the transfer with the US dollar, 75 cents or something maybe, I'm not sure. So please just bear that in mind if you want to do that from this, and reach out to Charles. He is more than happy. He'll put his email in chat. He may have already done that. So please go ahead and do that. And let me stop sharing so we can share some conversation. Yeah. So questions. Yeah, Jan.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm still working towards getting my 100 hours to apply for the ACC credential, so I'm still very new. And doing the training through Moving the Human Spirit, my understanding was that ICF did not really consider group settings to be coaching. So is that transitioning?
Yeah, no, ICF has 2 different platforms, and they've always had for quite some time. They have, there is group coaching and team coaching. And the difference between those two, I think, are 2 or 3 people. I think they, or it used to be. I'm not sure what the numbers are now. So what they're talking about is making sure that you utilize the number of people that they consider either group or team. And I will say group used to be up to 10. In my memory. It could have changed. Again, things have changed a lot in the last couple of years. And teams, I think, were up to 12 or 14. But don't mark my word on that. Sue, do you know whether those numbers are fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think you're pretty accurate on that. Sorry, someone's grinding outside. Geez, busy day today. But when you go to put your numbers down as far as like with if you're doing group coaching, so say if you had 5 people in that group and you were doing that group coaching session for 1 hour, it is only counted as 1 hour of group coaching. It is not counted as 1 5-hour things. So that's can be the difference as well there too.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's good, Sue. Thank you. It's a good reminder. So yes, explore that a bit, Jan, if it feels right to you. And again, people do the big thing with group work, not only is the dynamic, it's quite interesting working with group and trauma. I enjoy doing it just because, I'm able to, I work with organizations that have X amount of money and they want to produce something for this many hours and they want their, this many people to come. So it really, it's good for me because I can do 2 or 3 hours of work and have, been paid enough for 10 people. So it's kind of, and it's cheaper for them really. But I've utilized it a bit like that. Susan and I also work in other areas. So it's like, it's always kind of, Susan deals with all of that. She's the money the money selector telling me what I need to do. Sophie, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi,
Hi,
Brad.
Soph.
Hi,
How are
Susan.
you?
Oh
Nice to
my
see
gosh,
you.
it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you.
Well, this came up and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it's been something I've been trying to pull together for quite a long time. Something you said sort of struck me, and I'm quite curious about what you said. You said, no one as a coach will ever work in trauma. And it's exactly what I found. You kind of know my background, it's British Army, and I've really struggled. I've really struggled to sell the trauma-informed coaching part because I think so many people, I know because of my own background experience, where there was a gap, and fundamentally believe in what you're doing and what I'm doing and what people need. However, trying to tell people that know no difference between a coach, a counselor, a psychotherapist, etc., that actually a trauma-informed coach is right, and especially those that have the money and the purse strings, has been really difficult. And I found barrier after barrier after barrier. So I am really curious about what you said, how you managed to convince people. And that's a big question. So I'm really
Yeah.
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. What I'm doing is looking for my pad because I think what might be interesting is if we send you some of the return on investment, return on expectation. So we do a report with our military program. I haven't updated it in a couple of years because of COVID and stuff, and we've seen a bit of a mixed bag when it came to being able to do the intensive and then the coaching. So I'm happy to share that report with you, Sophie. The other thing that I think about is that because we are different, I mean, the thing with us, we can still work in unison with clinical practitioners. And the thing with us is that we are non-clinical, we don't diagnose, we don't treat. And for me, the dividing line for us is because, not because, but is that we are working in the here and now and moving towards the future. We do not do work in the past. So clinicians are always, not always, but mostly doing work in the past. And what happens in that instance is that there is re-traumatization, exposure therapy, all of those things I have a hard time with because I've worked with clients that have been doing that. So from our point of view as trauma-informed coaches, we're not trying to take away from the clinical setting, and I'm really glad we have it because diagnoses need to be made in order for people to get medication for their sympathetic nervous system before they implode. But we have an ability to actually take the person where they are and help them guide their imprint to not become who they are. So I'm not the imprint of my trauma, but the imprint happened. And we honor that story and imprint, but we're there to say, I got it. And I'm here to help you if you want to move away from that identity. So I think, sorry, so.
No, Brad, I'm sorry. I absolutely get that, but it's even getting the opportunity to do that because I found, I don't know if there's any other UK people, but any country, but they kind of hold people counselors, psychotherapists will hold on to, and a person doesn't. I realized actually once I'd got through my trauma that I needed to navigate forward and I needed a toolbox of tools because life happens, right? You need to still navigate life, yeah, and move forward with resilience, as you've said. I get that, but that's not what other people.
Right.
Yeah.
So for transparency, I'll also let you know before we started the work with Wounded Warriors that Dr. Tim Black, who's a great guy. He's at UVic. He is the head of psychology. And it was actually the clients that were interested in the trauma-informed coaching. And as a psychologist, he said, well, I don't know, why don't you just try it? If they'll do it for free for you, why don't you just try it? So we ran a pilot, and the pilot is what secured us the contract. So we actually did the pilot for free. I think we did, I want to say 3 or 6 months, Sue. I can't remember, but I'm like, you know what? We really believe in this. Let's do the pilot for you for nothing, and that's how we won the contract. So yes, do we have to do some footwork or legwork for sure? So if you can find someone that is running an intensive or a program, Susan and I often referred to ourselves as exit coaches, and what we meant by that is that if there was a intensive program that psychologists were running, how were they doing follow-up? And that's what we became, more that support follow-up. So that is something to consider, is to look at it and go, okay, well, how can I get it in relation? Susan's all about building relations. I'm a hermit. She's really a relationship person. So I'm not that conversational on a good day unless, there's a close connection. So it's like there is always an opportunity to meet people and build a relationship, but showing them, really showing them that what you're doing is doable. You can make a difference. And that's how we got that particular contract. Yeah. And I do not oftentimes say do free work because we don't want to dilute the unique gift that we are. But sometimes if there is a bigger piece of that puzzle, it might be worthwhile, especially if you're running into resistance. So, Lori, thanks for your patience. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. This is really exciting. I've done some group coaching, and I can really see how having this certification would really help kind of refine the tools in the box a little bit, because it's one thing when you're dealing with one person who's traumatized, it's another thing when it's a room full of people, and how that can trigger other people's trauma and can steer the conversation and sometimes positive directions but also negative directions. This is a little bit of an odd question, but I just recently took my PCC exam, and one of the things that was the most scary and disappointing is that so much of it was really focused around organizational coaching.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, I'd say at least a half to a third of the questions were all related to profession, coaching within a business or an organization. And so a couple of questions, requests, when you speak with the ICC, I would love for you to make a case too about the benefits of personal coaching, because when I see a trauma-informed group coaching, that says to me more personal than professional. While there are people definitely within, the armed forces and first responders, you can come together as a group. There are a lot of people that have trauma that doesn't really transcend organizations. It's necessary. It's more personal.
Yep.
So I'm wondering too, to what degree the ICF is making provisions for group coaching, or integrating that um, into their questions for tests and all of that.
Good question. I don't know. They just came out with a new exam this week. So I can say I do not know what's in that exam yet because I haven't had the um, bandwidth to be able to go through what they're sharing with some of the educational providers. Or if they do share the exam, I don't know if it rotates on a question basis like the old exam does or not, because they're not the same questions. They change. I'm thinking about how I can move your comment forward. Uh,
It's a little bit of a weird question. Maybe you just sit on it, but I do think that when I sit in this, and it feels very, very much about personal coaching in a group environment versus professional. And that's the one thing, just the one concern that I have, not for you, but for all of us, is that we're making a case for people that are coming with personal stuff. I mean, trauma isn't often while a workplace can instill trauma, and I definitely deal with clients who have that, it's also more than that. So.
Right. Yeah, I think some of the interesting thing about doing group work as well that we find is that at the end of the day, what you end up finding is your ideal clients. So, not even if you do the group work, still people will want to have you one-on-one because they see how you perform and how you maneuver and how you coach. And I think that's also a consideration for us when we think about being able to put ourselves in front of people, why we even have group work is to put yourself in front of potential clients, because if they like what they see, then they're going to then request that one-on-one, which is incredibly important. So it's like, yeah, interesting.
Thank you.
I'll digest that with you. Any other questions or insights, thoughts or ideas? Lucky lottery numbers that I should know about. So what we really want to do is just thank you guys for showing up here today and giving us some of your time. If anyone is interested, again, like I said, Charles is happy to assist. We do have this ability to offer, Susan's offering a discount for this particular course, and it is coming up on February the 25th, I do believe. No, sorry, that is incorrect. It's coming up on March 4th. So March 4th, something to think about. It is a 3 to 6 PST, so it's later in the day for those who work. And if you have any other questions, please reach out and ask myself, Charles, or Susan. But it's a pleasure to see you all. So thanks for showing up here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Joy.
Thank you,
Fred.
Thank you, guys.